President of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we are abundantly thrilled to have the cast of the highly popular TV show, The Game, as our guest on Africa Roundtables. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to the Africa members who are taking part in the call today, starting with Katia Woods, our facilitator in Philadelphia, Dana Abercrombie in New York, Mercedes Springer in Atlanta. KB, is it Houston or New York?
Houston.
Harrison Martin. Harrison, I forget what city you live in. You're in DC, right?
I'm in near Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, well, that was close enough. Harrison's a new member. Rhonda Rasha Penrice in Atlanta and Carolyn Hines in Toronto. I'm going to let you guys do what you do so well, and I will see you on the other side.
KB here with Through the Lens of Lady KB. I absolutely adore the show, and one of my favorite relationships is between Tasha and Malik. So my question is for Wendy and Hosea, and I'll start with you, Wendy. Kind of what challenges personally and professionally will arise for them as the season continues, and how does this impact their shared legacy?
Wow. First of all, thank you so much for having us here. And I think, wow, you're really going to see their relationship challenged in terms of the mother-son dynamic. You know, for so many seasons and so many years, we've, grown to love Tasha and Malik, because they were more like siblings. They were confidants for each other, and they were so many things to each other. But right now, you're going to see the need for not the manager, but for the mom in his life. And that's going to be put not only to challenge, but I think it's going to be one of the things that's going to be a dividing, well, I don't want to give too much away. But you're going to see it definitely be challenged. And that was one of the hardest things for me, because not only on camera, but off camera, Hosea and I, we have such a great dynamic. And it was like, okay, give me my wall, give me my space, give me my boundaries while we were working, because it was really a difficult challenge to not only be at odds, but to be to question the dynamic of, who we are, not only as mother and son, but as manager, client, confidant. It's not many people that Tasha really lets into her world, and to see that really crumble is quite interesting. So we challenge, the health awareness, the mental health awareness, and all of those things. So Hosea, I'll let you take the lead on it now, dear.
The first portion of your question, unfortunately for me, it cut out a little bit. Can you repeat? Would you mind repeating the question for me?
Oh yeah, no problem. I was
Thank you.
saying, what challenges personally and professionally will arise for Tasha and Malik as the season continues, and then how does that impact their shared legacy?
Oh, well, it's so interesting, Wendy. I don't think I could have answered it any better than you did. This season will tear at the fabric of their relationship. It'll tear at the fabric of who they are and who we've known them to be as Tasha and Malik. And the beautiful part of that is Wendy is such a phenomenal artist to act opposite with. The work is so grounded in the world that we live in. So I'm really fortunate and excited for you guys to see the rest of how this season plays out, because I think from this point on, it gets really challenging for these two characters.
Hi, everyone. Mercedes here with She Critiques in Atlanta. So the show is definitely coming back around after a lot of hot button issues have been throughout the last 2 years with BLM, post-BLM, and with athletes kind of taking a stance with mental health awareness. Can you talk about why it's important for you now to incorporate that, and what topics will we see discussed now in this series?
The beauty of what our show is and what the show represents is the fabric of America. Football is still the cornerstone of our American experience. People still gather around their televisions every Sunday to watch 100 and something million people actually to watch football. So fortunately for us, we were able to ingrain this show in not only just culture, in the currency of what's happening in today's times. As you said, athletes are on the forefront of what's happening socially in our lives. So we're so fortunate to be able to tell stories currently. Thankfully, the show came back again, and in a time where football and athletes are on the forefront of everything that we're experiencing as African Americans, particularly. So I think thankfully, Devon was able to come in, and then you can speak more to this, Devon, and expose us to this new world that we live in, that athletes are they're at the forefront, they're at the precipice of what we're doing in our lives. So, Devon, I don't know if you want to speak to that, buddy.
Yeah, let the head writer write.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you guys for inviting us into this forum. We really appreciate it. One of the things that we wanted to do when we brought the show back was, have the funny, have the fun. We always say it's, the familiarity if you're coming in from the old of it and know what it was, but there's a freshness and a newness to it, familiar but fresh, if you're opening your eyes either as an old viewer or as a new viewer to see what it is. And one of the things as a writer that I love doing so much is, and I always challenge the concept, that we're talking about hot button issues, because I think we're talking about life. Now, if my life happens to have a hot button issue tied to it, then so be it. Because that's the dynamic of what it is, because so many of us have that either in our rear view, our side view, in our family, or inside of our hearts and who we are. So it just touches on so I don't want to preach to you. I don't want to preach at you. I don't want to talk at you. I just think these issues, these subjects, these subject matters are ingrained in so many different perspectives of who we are, that they just come through the series. And I don't think we sit down and like the show that we just did. We don't sit down and say, oh, you should say this, or you shouldn't say the N-word, or blah, blah, blah. It happened, we deal with it, other things happen, we keep moving, because that's what happens to us. We don't get, 20 days all down and talking about, oh, somebody followed me in the market and thought I was stealing something. No, it happened, boom, I got to go deal with it, that's life. Now I got to go take care of my kids and love my wife, did we have an opportunity to talk about them? Yes. Will we talk about them? Yes, but we'll talk about them in context of who we are in this world and in this dynamic. And, they won't always be, and one of the things, and I'll wrap this up quickly, but one of the things that I always try to do is get a multi-pronged perspective. Do I agree with everything that we write? No. Do I disagree with everything we write? No, but there are so many layers. And for so long, African-Americans and that we were a monolith. You have to believe this, you have to believe that, you can't challenge this, it can't be different here. We can have the same thought process and same experiences and come out with different perspectives. And that's kind of one of the things that we're trying to do. We're trying to challenge that in a way that we're not saying, yo, we're talking about it and this and believe this. But we're just going through that on a daily basis and on a show-by-show basis.
If I could piggyback off of what Devon and Hosea said, I think something that was interesting that you brought up in the question is that after these 2 years, and during these 2 years, a lot of us, we weren't able to go outside. So social media, watching television, but seeing the behind the scenes of celebrities, of athletes, of entertainers, we were like glued to our phone. That was our drama, that was our entertainment. So now the timeliness of the show coming out, where the things that we saw, like as far as any sex scandals, anybody saying anything on Twitter that was controversial, anything in the news that came up in the entertainment or athletic world, I'm happy that the fact that these factors are being brought into the show, because it's something that's real. It's something that now we have a public eye on, and it's something that we can address and see the issues and really have conversations about it. So I think the timeliness of bringing the game back and not just having a very smooth or glossy view on it, and actually showing some real controversial things is the timeliness of where we are with our athletes, with our entertainers.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you so much.
Dana Abercrombie from the Coalition. One of the things that I really loved, especially about episode 5, was that you're tackling with the N-word. And you not just address that, but you show the trickle down effects, especially with the young daughter. My question to you is, can you talk about the importance of showing the trickle down effect? And especially for Wendy, who plays Tasha, will that situation, that end scene, kind of shift how Tasha her eagerness to break new ground? Will she kind of have a more introspective outlook on who she wants to sign, to recruit? Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that directed to me or to Devon?
Sorry, to both.
Okay, I'll start. Number one, I think it's just so critical. I work with young ladies, and to see where they are and to hold up a mirror to them so that they can see themselves through that lens is so critical. And that particular episode, and it's ironic that you bring it up, because I had to actually go in and do some looping on that one line. And it's when she says, "Mommy, am I a nigger?" And it's like, "No, sweetheart, you're not." And to recapture that, it's so heavy, and it's so, I want to say it's just full, it's beyond just the no. It's, letting her know what, number one, what is a nigger? I even feel uncomfortable saying the word right here in this room with you. But it is that uncomfortableness where we have to confront it and we have to talk about it. And I'm so glad that we did. And I'm glad, more importantly, that it came through the lens of Kai, my daughter. And it causes us to, stop, pause, look at ourselves, because she overheard Malik saying it just so freely and fluidly, which a lot of times we do. And I think, just like Devon said, it's not about, we're going to hold up a banner and say, yes, Black Lives Matter, don't say the N-word, but showing a mirror of ourselves, to our audience is critical, especially right now, and especially with our young ladies. And I think, excuse me, I think it's a launching pad as to where Tasha is going to go eventually. This is just the beginning of her, I don't want to say of her consciousness, but her return to consciousness. It's not just about making money. It's not just about, the ebb and the flow and navigating through life. And yeah, I'm a shot caller and this, that, and the other. And it's like, no, we're going to get to some core issues here and who she really is at the core, and who these characters are at the core, and what's really at stake. But I just wanted to applaud Devon and the writers for really encapsulating that and putting it through the eyes of Kai. And that's how we're going to go out on this episode, and you deal with it, the audience.
I like to take that and run with it. One of the very first episodes in my mind when I started thinking about like taking over the reins of the show and Mara handing it over and passing that baton was this episode. It was like at some point, even if we don't get to do it in year one or whatever, at some point I want to have this discussion. And it's a bigger discussion. It's that breakdown of the monolith. It's talking about who will say it, who won't say it, who's okay with it, say it, who's not okay with racism in general. If you look at what Vaughn did being confronted by woke white people in that same manner, you look like, oh wow, look at this, that end scene that you're talking about that we just thought was so powerful. A lot of people going back, first of all, hard ER versus A, you wouldn't believe the notes that we got on it and like what it meant and how to do it and how to say it, so forth and so on. And then that end, a lot of people wanted to continue to have that conversation. But again, it's like life. The reason we went to Black and said it afterwards is because this goes on. It doesn't stop. And if we had the conversation and tried to talk, it'd be like, that's where we believe and it's gonna stop. No, it's not. It's going to always continue, and allowing us to go to Black and say that it's like, oh, yo, this is going to be generational. This is going to continue. This conversation doesn't end. So it was a great episode to be a part of. It was a great episode to dive into. Loved everything about it. And that's not something, the funny thing is, that's not something you can replicate on a continual basis. You can't try and do that every week. So, to do it once and have it such a great response is amazing and heartwarming.
Yeah.
I just really like how it captivated us as a people, us as a culture, how we really do differentiate the difference between nigga and nigger, and how one is derogatory, and how when you're little and ignorance is bliss, you don't really know the difference between nigga and nigger. You ask questions like, am I a nigger? Like what is, and you feel the derogatoriness of it because that ER is on there, and how as we grow older, we learn to say nigga and camaraderie. I think it's really cool that we included all the dynamics of us as the people into this episode and allowed that conversation to be had, like Devon said, leaving it up to the audience at the end, not really pushing any agenda.
Hi, Carolyn. First, here's what happened in Carolyn Talks podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. One of the things that I think is really interesting about this season, especially the episode that we're discussing, is the concept of ownership. And this is a question I'm going to address to everyone, because for each of the characters, the concept of ownership is different. For Malik, it's about him wanting to fit into the club of being an owner of his own football team, especially as a Black man, and the significance of that. And for Tasha, she's talking about her brand, owning her brand, even with the controversy of her new client using the N-word and what that means for her as an owner of a brand. and being an agent. And then also for Jamison, there's like him owning his path as a footballer, like what's next for him and not letting people dictate where they think he needs to go. And Brittany, she's interesting because she's working with Tasha, this very strong Black woman who knows who she is and knows what she wants. But Brittany wants to have her own say, and she wants to put forth her own ideas, and she's trying to make her own space. So for all of you, Devon included, just talk about what the concept of ownership means for all of your characters and for you personally as performers doing these roles and also working in the industry and getting these stories up.
Wow. Who's gonna start? I know, it's like, huh?
I'll start in general by saying, first of all, thank you for catching the theme. Like we try so hard to bury them and not let them shine, but they're so intricate into what we do and how we build storylines. Every story has a theme. And if you look at this one, we do themes and motifs throughout everything. Like the motifs of this one was Black images. You'll see, Garrett was reading a book called The N-Word. There were Black images out. The Uncle Ben's rice was behind Jamison inside. Like, if you look at the grease that's on the counter that Tasha is using to do the hair, the folded hands of Carlos in the '68 Olympics, was there. Like, so first of all, I just like to say thank you for recognizing that. And I hope what we're doing, it allows us to build that. But ownership is really big in what we're doing. Now, in this day and time, this is one of the few moments in history that African Americans post, Civil War, post Reconstruction, especially in entertainment, have an opportunity to have ownership in a real intrinsic way. And ownership was a theme throughout this year, a theme throughout these episodes, and especially in this episode that we tied into. I'll be quiet and go off of that. Just as a writer and a nerd, I'm just like, yo, somebody got it. That's awesome. So thank you for that.
I'll go next. That's really refreshing to see that you actually did see it, as Devon said, the theme. One of the synergies that I knew from the very beginning of coming into this season was that not only was Hosea's personal journey about ownership of a baby that I'd helped nurse from the very first frame in 2006 to now. So I knew that I would have to come into this assuming full ownership of it. And what ownership is just responsibility in some way. And it's interesting that all the new players that come in, they have to have ownership too, because this is now their baby too. So they have to come in and, assert their ownership in this. And so the theme, not only the theme worked and played for all of us behind the scenes, as we came into this as artists, coming into a new experience, having to take up ownership, because this inclination of the show demanded that everybody that come in take up ownership. And then Devon had the biggest responsibility of all in ownership, coming in. So yeah, it's a thing behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. And I think for me, I was really fortunate to be able to use what I was experiencing with a lot of new people and a lot of older people that I'd known for years. So I'm really fortunate to be able to use my real life as an artist to inspire and influence my life as an artist. So thank you, Devon, for that. That synergy.
Wow. I'll dive in. For me, ownership is accountability. And I feel like diving in, what's interesting, and I'm going to talk about Tasha, before it was Tasha Mack Management. And then the one thing that was pointed out by Devon, he was like, there really aren't managers in sports. It was like, oh, okay. So accountability, I'm an agent. So yeah, it's that shift. So, and being an agent and having the careers of, these high profile athletes and, all of that at my helm and at my fingertips, it's taking accountability for that, but it's also the accountability of owning who I am as a Black woman, and being a mom, being a wife, trying to juggle it all. Can I have it all? Can you really? I don't know. And if at what cost do I have it? It's also the ownership, it really sheds a light on the NFL. I've been watching, and I don't want to deflect, but I'm late and behind on Colin in Black and White on Netflix, and it really shows the spotlight on the NFL and there are no Black owners, in sports, which is sad. When you look at all of the Black athletes, where are we? Where is this ownership? And why is it so difficult to get into those positions? So I really love the relationship that Tasha has now with the owner, played so wonderfully by Tim Daly. But I love that relationship because it shows the ownership. It shows us still trying to get there, the conflict, the internal struggle, why Malik can't be an owner. It's not about money. It's definitely not about the money. So I love the dichotomy of not only owning who we are as characters, actors, but really showing the ownership and the lack thereof, diversity and ownership in football and the whole sports world in general. So that's that's a broad question. So I hope I danced around it. Go away.
For me, ownership, there's many levels to it because, as we know, Brittany's been played by several other actors prior to me. So I had to take ownership of this character, and I had to do it with respect to what others had previously done. So there was just a journey of making sure that I knew her nuances, I knew her backstory, because she was so well established previously, but also there was a great way that Devon and the writers wrote it, where that she was able to be established in a new light as she's an adult now. And that's also a part of her journey as Brittany is, she's finding ownership of her life, taking accountability, as Tasha said, for her life and her actions. And she's stepping into the person that she truly is outside of being Jason Pitts and Kelly Pitts' daughter. So ownership was a really big, forceful, impactful thing for Brittany and for me personally to go through in response to this role. And I think also for the show, us as the talent, we're taking ownership on the stories that we're telling that are so relatable to what is happening today, so relatable to the things that are going on in the world. And for us to be these characters that are somebody that someone relates to, or somebody that somebody remembers from one of these pasts, is just a part of the history that is being made in the world. We're up here performing them, and we have to take ownership of being truly real and relatable and as authentic as possible as these characters and that are based on true life people. So ownership was a really big thing for Brittany, me, and I think for the show overall.
I would say that for me, for ownership, it's interesting because Hosea and Wendy, they've had 9 seasons prior. And then for Adriyan with Brittany, like she just mentioned, there were other actresses who have come in and done this, and now she had a chance to recreate Brittany Pitts for what she wanted her to be. For me, I was like, is Jamison based off of anybody prior? Is this somebody, that's totally new, or is this somebody that's pulling from other characters before? And I was very happy to have the pleasure to create Jamison and really own every nuance of him, every intricate detail of him from start to finish. So that's what ownership looked like for me when it came to this role, and owning the work, owning the character, and being able to bring something totally new to a legacy that is the game. And I would say for Jamison, the concept of ownership, having everything taken away from him and then starting from scratch again, I would say it's an interesting thing when you really don't feel like you can own anything outside of yourself, except for your actions, except for how you respond to things, except for how you respond to people. So, I have, Jamison has a lot to owe to Malik, Tasha, and Brittany, because they really kind of like set up his road to success. However, there are traps along the way that come up, and he only thing he can own is himself. How he responds to these comments that people make, how he responds to the situations that come up. As you can see, he has a temper sometimes, so he doesn't always respond the best way. But the image now that he can create for himself is going to be based off of how he responds, how he owns with his actions, his attitude, and ultimately his work ethic that's going to get him to the next level. And I think that's a very symbolic representation of sometimes in life, all you can really own is your own actions and your own mentality, and own all you really have is yourself.
Great. Thank you so much for answering the question so eloquently, I would say. And yes, Wendy, you did get the answer. You did get the answer.
Here, what's Cup of Social?
By the way,
I'm
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Carolyn. There's even in the title, there's an ownership element to the theme. Same whips, new change.
I caught that.
You know, so all over the place.
Thank you.
Wendy, my question is for you. One of the things I really love is that you play a woman over 45 who has a full life, because as a woman of over 45, we don't get to see ourselves. We don't get to see ourselves as mothers, as wives, or just as women living in the world. You know, we're usually just the mom, and then we don't have a life and we don't do anything else.
Wow.
What has it been like, you know, just to get to portray someone in that age group that is still learning, still figuring things out, reinventing herself, which a lot of us are doing. And I love the fact that you get to see her as her mom differently to her daughter than she was with Malik, because now she's older and she's wiser. So talk a little bit about Tasha's journey in that way.
Oh, it's one of the things, not only as an actor, but just sometimes as an audience member, I enjoy it so much. It's just so yummy to see all of these evolutions of Tasha. And sometimes I'm like, okay, now, are they following me? Because there's so many parallels in my real life at times, you know, that Tasha's going through and Wendy's going through. And to be able to really merge the two of those, you know, I believe acting starts from the inside. You know, we have to bring everything that we are to the core, to the characters. And to be able to play a character that allows me to do that, but still has so much fun, still has so many flaws. And like you said, I am a work in progress, you know, both Tasha and Wendy, you know, and trying to hold it all together and still discovering life and being of a certain age. And to be able to see that, you don't get an opportunity to see Black women successful. You know, I mean, there are some shows that, you know, that do that, but to see it and to have this journey that's been almost 20 years of my life, and to walk in these shoes with her, you know, through the dating phase, through the mothering phase, through the management phase, and now a wife and a mother all over again, and to be able to show those different dynamics, it's just, it's the greatest reward, you know, in doing a character. So when the opportunity came up for me to do a reboot, it was like, it was a no-brainer, you know. She's rich, she's wonderful. I'm not just rich in money, she's rich in all of the dimensions that she brings, you know, and to be able to walk in the shoes of this woman who on the outside may have it all together, but at times on the inside is really crumbling, is such a wonderful dichotomy. And so it's a joy, it's a joy.
Harrison Martin, Flix Frog. So my question is mostly aimed towards Jose, but everybody can feel free to chime in later. The scene where he was talking, where Malik was talking to his younger sister, and she was telling him about her imaginary friend, and he was like consoling her, saying, "Well, you know, I have an imaginary friend too." And I thought that scene was cute until I realized what was exactly going on with that scene with his friend, and it just dawned on me. I was like, "Wow, so this is what it's been the whole time." And I didn't even notice. I thought that was excellent writing. But how was it for you filming those scenes and knowing, all right, this is what's going on with Malik, and Wendy, for you, Tasha, when he's having that argument with her later, like, how do you deal with that? She's like, I would know what's going on with my kids. And, you know, when obviously she doesn't, how do you play those scenes over in your head before you actually film?
So, you know, it's so that I was actually going to have a talk with Devon about this scene in particular, because I was really shocked and surprised that the scene with me and my sister, where she admitted that she has an imaginary friend, was something that would resonate with so many people. I honestly had no idea of the impact. And I did not know, even shooting it, until it aired. My messages and even my best friend and my cousins, is so many people called me and said that that was such a pertinent and such an important thing for us to discuss. particularly because as Black and brown people, we don't discuss things like that. And my best friend actually, he and his wife actually both were crying to me about how they hadn't seen that represented. And it was something that they experienced in their childhood that they didn't know how to unpack as adults because they had imaginary friends. I didn't have a specific imaginary friend, but I was an only child for the first 13 years of my life. So I spent a lot of time doing things that were enhancing to my imagination. But I didn't have a specific person, but I had things. And it's so interesting how when we play with those things and how we interact with things that don't exist in the physical realm, we tend to label people as crazy. We tend to label people just in general, a label. And the thing that I found through the research that I've done and through people coming to me was that a lot of people have this same exact, I can't call it a problem because I want to be careful because it isn't a problem, the same exact experience in their lives. So I've learned the importance of unpacking what it means to have mental health issues in general, and speaking specifically to things that we label in society as crazy or awkward or odd or something other. I've learned through this experience, thanks to the writers and to Devon, I've learned through this experience how we must handle these things with gentle kid gloves, and we must stop the judgment, and we must stop the persecution of things that we don't understand in individuals, and understanding that we are all we're all just searching for our own grounding in our personal lives and our own understanding. And I'm rambling a little bit, so I'll let Wendy finish this question. But yeah, I think it's one of the most important things that I've learned recently about mental health was the episode that you're speaking about.
No, I totally agree with everything you said. I think you handled it very well. I think I do want to touch upon, as a mom, well, Tasha, but there's denial as well. We want to say, "Oh, you're gonna be all right," or "Yeah, boy, what you talking about? You're not crazy," or "She's not crazy and she don't handle imaginary friends." And as you will see, as the story develops, denial it's something that we really have to come face to face with and unpack, like you said, Hosea, so well, our issues and confront them. And this is one episode. It's not going to be rah, 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 but it's going to definitely hold up a mirror to so many people and, to show that it's okay to talk about it and to get help and confront it.
Thank you very much. Great answer.
Mm-hmm.
Great question, Harrison.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Rhonda. We've kind of been talking about it in a roundabout way, but especially for Wendy and Hosea, what is the allure of the game? Like, we've never seen a Black show that just won't die. It keeps getting picked up. It's a beautiful thing, but I'm curious as to what you guys think that is, and for Devon and Vaughn and Adriyan, why were you guys drawn?
I honestly think that the show, Devon, is something that I believe that the show should continue to live on. And as long as we exist on Paramount Plus, I feel, because, like I said earlier, football is the fabric of our country. So we get to tell stories that really represent what everyday Americans, African Americans specifically, are going through, or anyone, but specifically an African American story. And I think it's relevant. It's continuously relevant. And again, it should continue, in my opinion, because we get to see, Wendy, is that you laughing?
Yeah.
No, seriously, I was aiming towards saying that I think that the show should always come back. I think that even after this inclination of it is done, I think there should be something of the game that is represented on our televisions for generations to come, because we've been so fortunate to be a multi-generational show, which does not happen. So I say continue the generations of it, because we've been through, so many inclinations of mothers, fathers, children, grandchildren, and now great-grands that are watching the show who their grandparents have known it, which is so brilliant to me. I think we should continue that tradition even after this inclination.
And I'm giggling because it's like, it's really the show that will not stop. I think it's, for me, it's the game that's on the field, but it's off the field. It's the perception and perspective of all these different characters and all these different walks of life. You know, I'm always a fan of the underdog, you know, and I look at Tasha and Malik, it doesn't get any more undergirth than that. You know, we started from the bottom, and then to see this journey and to see the possibility of losing it all. You know, there's so much at stake, you know, and the fact that we're in Vegas. So now it's been reinvented to a whole nother level. And now we're bringing in these, you know, this new blood and this new energy, you know, that shifts and changes. And then to see the struggles that, you know, that Jamison has, you know, and to see his underdog story, and then to see that. So it can go on, and it can go into so many different dimensions. You know, I had this whole running thing. I was like, "Ooh, and Kai, honey, I need to make her one of those little cheerleaders and the little dance thing," you know. And I mean, it's just so many ways. Subtle hint, Devon, but it's so many ways that these characters can branch out, and I think it really resonates with the audience. And that is the biggest thing, you know, to see ourselves as ourselves, but we're just in a heightened level that people can really, really identify with. You know, coming from Richmond, everybody tells me all the time, girl, everybody think I'm just like you, Tasha, and I'm just like you, you know, you remind me of my auntie. And, you know, everybody thinks that they, you know, when they see me, that they can identify with me and I'm their best friend. You know, it's really interesting. And I think that's one of the magical things about the game, is that these characters are fully dimensionalized, they're flawed, they're funny, they're relatable, they're identifiable, and the audience, they're rooting for us. They want us to win. They want us to come back, you know? Yes, you got to pay a subscription this time, but it's worth it. It's worth it. But everybody, you know, that's what I get. It's like, damn. But they're just so thankful for the episodes and what we're tackling. So I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's go. As long as we can go till the wheels fall off.
See, I agree with all of that, but I am also a people say what's the old cliche, outside the box kind of thinker, or like you just kind of reformulate everything. I don't look at it like that. I kind of see, because to me, to answer the question simplistically, it's about the characters and also about the position that Mara and Celine, you know, put the characters in the beginning, and then the world, because this world is never ending. As Hosea said, football's not going anywhere. It's only getting bigger. But see, we always look at characters as like they have this finite expiration date. That's not true. You don't, until I die, I don't have an expiration date. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can go back to my past and tell you some stories that I don't want to hide from, or that was great. And it's all beautiful. So why do we just dig in where we are and where we're going, and not where we've been? How did that content? Like, you can always contextualize. And that was one of the things coming into this, because I said no, when I'm gonna keep it 100. Please. When Mara and CBS was like, yo, you gonna do that? I was like, nope. I'm not touching that, because I knew, like, out of the 10 things of this show that could happen, 9.5 of them were the wrong. I was gonna, it's just all wrong. Like, you always had to be perfect coming back. And even then, there were some people that you're just not going to convince. Like, no, I want everybody back. I want it just the same. So, right. You know, but then when I was able to step back and go, wait a minute, there's so many things in my life that I never get to talk about. There's so many things that didn't happen that I wanted to have happen. There's so many things I want to have happen that should happen or might happen. There's parallels, and why don't we do that? Why are we just looking at it from one angle? Why are we looking at it from here going forward? Why are we looking at it from what we think it is? What about, like, having Malik and this vision go back to, like, all this connects his whole world. It's a whole roundabout circle. The same with Tasha, the same with, Brittany and Jamison. You'll see it all. It's like a three-dimensional kind of view and perspective. And doing that means there's never ending stories to continue to tell and dive into, branches after branches. And if you look at each character as a three-dimensional character, even the small ones that come in, then you can say, yo, we could rope off into that. We can go there. I look at it like the Marvel universe. Why not? Marvel did it. Wow. Why can't it be the game universe? Why can't we spin Jason Kelly off, or Derwin and Matt? Like, why not? Let's go. Keep it going. Wow. I'm too excited. I'm sorry.
No, it's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, Devon, Vaughn, Hosea, Adriyan, and Wendy, we thank you for all that you're giving us each and every week. And we are so thrilled that the game is back on television. And for the folks out there, yes, it's worth the subscription. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film and TV critics, we thank you again. We wish you a happy holiday season, and we hope you enjoy this episode of Africa Roundtables. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
God bless you guys.